मस्ती जीने के बुरी मो गंगा पय के समान वाके तट घाट.
It is my absolute privilege to welcome renowned dancer, Bharatanatyam dancer Urmila Sathyanarayanan on behalf of SIFAS for our series of conversations called RepARTee. Thank you very much, Urmila, for agreeing to do this with us in the middle of a very busy December season. I remember meeting you more than 15 years ago when you came to perform for the SIFAS festival at Esplanade. I think this was back in 2005. That was, in fact, the first year we moved the festival to the SIFAS festival to Esplanade, and you were the first solo dancer to perform there on that beautiful stage. I still have such wonderful memories of those days. You probably remember as well. We can talk about it. Urmila Sathyanarayanan, of course, needs no introduction. She is an eminent dancer who is trained under very eminent gurus. We'll let her speak for herself. She's won many awards and accolades, including the Kalaimamani Award and the Nritya Chudamani Award. I'll hand it over to Urmila to talk about her dance journey. Let's begin at the very beginning. We'll go back to your childhood days and hear about how your dance journey began. Over to you, Urmila.
Thank you so much, Renuka. I have such lovely memories of that trip and of the performance. And I remember how systematic and how professional all of you were. And the discipline really impressed me. And the stage was like a dream for any dancer. I mean, I was so excited just to see the stage itself. And I remember the rehearsal we had there and the lovely stay we had at your place. And it's truly a very memorable performance, and hospitality and the warmth from everyone at SIFAS. I can never forget that at all. And having talked about this, my journey in Bharatanatyam started, I think, like most dancers of my generation, it started with my mother, really. And she was the one who was very keen that I learned dance. I was all of 3 when I was taken to Saraswati Gana Nilayam. So, I mean, I don't really remember the first class or the second class or any such thing, because yes, I do have memories, but it's not like very clear and crystallized in my mind. And my mother apparently wanted to be a dancer, and for various reasons that it always only remained a dream. So she was very particular to teach me dancing.
That's the case. That was the case with me as well.
Yeah, that's what I said. I think that's the case with most dancers of that time. So anyway, so I was taken to Saraswati Gana Nilayam, and Lalita's sister was alive at that point. So I started learning there. In fact, at the age of 4, I even participated in a group performance. They were very well known for their group performances. They were known only for their group. In fact, they hardly did any solos. And my grandfather's 60th birthday happened a year later after I joined. So Saraswati Gana Nilayam was hosting their, they were asked to perform for the reception that evening. So in that entire group, I came as a little Krishna here and there, and then I came as a little dancer here and there, and did a few small entries and exits. And of course, the family was very excited about it. That was my first feeling of a stage and of performance and costume and makeup. And I think in my case, that worked out very, very well, because I realized that just by being a dancer, you were treated so specially in comparison with all the other children in the family at that point, you know. So I think for a 4-year-old, it was a great sense of encouragement just to get all the attention at that point. And anyway, that
as a 4-year-old, did you have the attention span to actually learn the adavas and perform them?
I apparently did, because that's what my teachers told me later. They said, yeah, you actually learned. I don't think I did too much, but yes, it still requires some amount of whatever understanding, I suppose, even to enter and exit. And the story goes that they had my makeup on a couple of hours before the show, and just as it was about to start, they went searching for me because they couldn't find me anywhere. And here I was fully made up and fast asleep with a jangri in my hand. So I was eating jangri after jangri because in those days cooks used to come home and, we didn't have this catering and all that, right? And it was my favorite sweet. So it seemed I was fast asleep with a half-bitten jangri in my hand. So that's like all the elders keep talking about it and how they found me fast asleep. And then I did a role of a Krishna, I remember. And I also did the role of a dancer. So I wore two outfits. I had a Bharatanatyam costume as well as a Krishna costume. In a Shabdam, I had to, Samininne Chalanamiti Shabdam, I did a small entry and exit and a small bit of the Shabdam. I remember that very well. Then this went on. And when I was about 6 years old, we had this very renowned lawyer known as Seshadrayangar, who was very close to my grandfather. His daughter Soundravalli was very close to my dad. They were both friends growing up. And
I have to interrupt here and tell you, I mean, this is such a small world. Actually, Seshadri Iyengar was my grand uncle. He's my grandfather's older brother, and Soundravalli was my aunt.
I can't really believe this. Oh my God.
And because their house in, that place called Ice House in Triplicane was so famous. Yeah. And I remember that grand aunt, she was sort of an icon.
In larger than life.
Because she used to wear an Odyanam on a daily basis. Yeah.
And she was larger than life in every sense. A very gregarious kind of a person.
Yeah.
And so she was the one who told my mother, she said, you don't worry, I'll take her to Dandayirupani Pillai. My mother was a bit, anxious in the sense that
she was called, because he was I think he was the oldest brother. So she used to be called Peri Perima.
Oh, I see. And I think she played the role very well.
Yeah.
No, she was also a very, very warm lady. We used to go to their house for Navaratri Golu. And she used to have this lovely Golu where she used to have this train that would go through the forest. It would go through mountains and so many things. And she used to take all the trouble in the world putting it together. So she apparently told my mother not to worry. Though she's a young child, I know that Dandayirupani quite well. So I'll make sure that your child is admitted there. And at that time, he was a much sought after guru, teaching the likes of Jayalalitha, Manjula, M.L. Vasant Kumari was literally there all the time because Sri Vidya was performing and, at that time. So I was taken there and I was, of course, I joined the Dandayirupani Pillai Master's class, Natyakalaliyam. I had my Arangetram there. By the time I had my Arangetram, Master had passed on. I had my Arangetram 3 months after that. The date was fixed, but Master had passed on. Then I was there for some time, but Master had two different families and we knew all of them very, very well because they were all together at that point. But after Master passed on, there was a lot of, what shall I say, politics between the two families, and it was difficult for us because we knew everyone very well. So my mother decided that we'll go to KJ Sarasa, who was actually Master's brother's daughter. So she used to come to Master's house regularly, and my mother knew her as well. All this I had no idea of, Renuka. I was still very young, so it was my mother who took all these decisions. I was taken to class, I danced.
You were basically doing what your mother wanted you to do. I mean, at that point of time, did you know that?
I gave her a hard time as well. It's not as though every day I went running to class.
But how was an Arangetram in those days compared to what it is today?
First and foremost, it was literally for 3 hours.
Okay.
Maybe 2.5 to 3. 3, definitely 3. Okay, not like today where it's 2 hours. Okay, it was 3 hours. We had 3 costume changes, which was a must. 4 is like okay, but 3 is like absolutely mandatory. And we did 10 items. I did 10 items for my Arangetram. Okay. A shlokam, a padam, an ashtapadi, shabdam, jatiswaram, kautvam, of course varnam, tilana, and these things were mandatory. And the other nice thing about that was Vadyar had in-house musicians. All his musicians were in-house.
Okay.
How they worked that thing out at that point, I really don't know. But they were all in-house. They were there all the time. The singer was there all the time. The mridangist was there all the time. And we would have, you won't believe it, Renuka, if I tell you, I rehearsed for 1 month for Marangetram. 1 month with the full band of musicians.
And you were what? You would have,
I was 10.
As a 10-year-old, you had the discipline to rehearse for 1 month.
It's not because we had the Salanga Puja before that, you know, we had to have a Salanga Puja. That was again mandatory. You did your Salanga Puja when you were halfway through your Varnam. And Sadinchane, the Pancharatnam, was my Varnam. So I was halfway through. No, actually, I think I had finished Sadinchane itself. So I did the Alaripu, the Jatiswaram, the Shabdam, and Sadinchane for my Salanga Puja. And Salanga Puja itself, you rehearse for a good 10 days.
Okay.
Okay, so you get to know what it is to rehearse. And it was so disciplined that evenings rehearsals would start after the batch classes were over. So typically it would start, let's say, between 7:30, 7:15, 7:30, closer to 8, and go on till about 9:30 in the night. So that was like 1 month. You can't even imagine that for the best of dancers, the senior most person today. It's impossible. Can't even think about it. But that is how it was. And I think that really those things matter, Renuka, because, you know, you learn, you imbibe. It's not only merely your practice, you imbibe a lot. You imbibe a lot. Of course, that luxury is no longer, you can't even dream about it. Then also, I think a lot of things happened at that time when I was in Vadiar's house, because Vadiar was a very, he was a huge personality. He was a composer. He had chief ministers walking in and out of his house like, I don't even know what. So for us to see an MGR was a common thing. It wasn't anything so rare because, I mean, at least once a month or maybe twice a month, he would be in Vadiar's house and we would go. Otherwise, Vadiar would always take a bunch of his students. He was very, very fond of children. So wherever he went, he would always insist a bunch of us went with him. So we would go with him and we would stay there, spend a couple of hours. You know, so all that exposure, I mean, MLV Amma would sing and Srividya would play the veena and all Puttaneri Subramanyam and great poets would walk in and out, just being in that atmosphere. Not that I knew much, but I realized that, you know, there was so much of art. And I think really, I mean, I thank God so much for that, just for that exposure. And Vadir was a great foodie. He loved to eat good food. And I loved to eat good food as well. So I used to enjoy eating with him. So for him, it was a great high. So he would, you know, make sure that I ate, he would feed me. And we had a very, very close and very lovely relationship. Of course, Vadir passed on very early. He was only 54 when he passed away. And then I went to teacher. By the time I went to teacher, I was a young teenager. And what was very nice is teacher never touched my style. She said, you come from my brother, so I'm not going, so I'm not going to touch your style. It's quite different from my training, but I will not touch. I will just alter whatever suits you. And that I think was a great blessing. And the teacher had this great penchant for hard work. She was very, very hardworking, extremely hardworking. So I learned with her, I performed with her. Then of course I got married quite young. Then I had Samyukta when I was quite young. And after Samyukta, I wanted to get back to dancing. So my timings were a bit, you know, different because I would put the baby to sleep and I live in Kilpok, which is quite far away from Mandavalli. So even in those days before the traffic got really this bad, it would still take a good, let's say 35 to 40 minutes. Now it can take say 50 minutes to an hour, maybe, depending on the traffic. So then I would...
Did you take a break at all from dancing or were you dancing?
Not really, not for very long, Renuka. Maybe for about definitely a year and 6 months, maybe.
Okay.
A year and 6 months, or a little more than that, I suppose, but definitely within 2 years.
Okay.
Then when I went back, I would go at an odd time, you know. So, and she never minded at all, never minded at all. She would say, no, you come, you know, let's work, let's do something. So I think all that encouragement really helped me a lot. And I learned a lot with her. Then after that, I started Natya Sankalpa on my own. And that was actually 25 years ago. This year is supposed to be our 25th year. We were supposed to have a celebration and all that, but we didn't plan anything due to the pandemic. And instead we had a festival called Arpanam, which was literally an arpanam. We did this over 3 days, where we invited dancers, solos, as well as groups from different parts of South India alone, Bangalore especially, because we wanted people to come by car and not depend on any other kind of transport. And we did this totally from us, from Natya Sankalpa, without any sponsors. We had it in Ardhagana Sabha and we threw it open to everyone. We're very particular to maintain safety protocol. And of course, it was free. And
When was this?
Sorry?
When was this Arpana held?
This was the 6th, 7th, and 8th of October in Ardhagana Sabha for 3 days. For 3 days. And we had...
With a live audience.
With a live audience and live musicians.
Oh.
We were very particular, Samyukta and I, that we wanted artists, we wanted to remunerate them well. We wanted artists to feel, this was the time when, you know, things were starting to get back, but we didn't know whether it would really come back or not. So we said, okay, let's do this. I'm very particular that we didn't want people to dance with recorded at all, because, you know, we wanted to do something for the artistic community. And I think it really went off well, because we had dancers coming in from Salem, Coimbatore, Madurai, Trichy, Kerala. They came only for the festival. They stayed and they watched the festival and they went back, especially youngsters.
Okay.
Which was very, very heartwarming. Only thing is, in terms of organizing, it was a lot of effort, because you have to take care of safety. So you have to ensure the person sends you an RSVP. Then you go through the details of the RSVP and then you allot a seat for them. Then you make sure the day they come to the performance that they receive the right seat, and of course the temperature check and everything was taken, and their names and addresses and all that with their Aadhaar card. So that kind of a thing took a lot of time, but because Ardhagana Sabha is a very large hall, it has 1,200 capacity, and I think we had about 400 to 450 people. So it was like, you know, that was very heartwarming as well. And of course, now I'm running the institution with very good faculty. And we have solo performance.
Yeah, that's my next question. I mean, having studied under great masters like Guru Dandayatapani Pillai sir and Guru KJ Sarasa ma'am, and now you run your own dance school. So how is it being a dancer, dance student under those gurus, and how is it being a dance guru yourself today? So what I mean is, how much has the environment of dance changed from then to now? Has there been a change at all, or is it the same?
Actually, that's a very interesting question, Renuka, because I keep thinking all the time, and I discuss this sometimes with friends and family, and I tell them that generally life has changed, you know, like I can't, my parents didn't treat me the way I treat my daughter. Okay, the good and the bad, it's different. Things have changed. Similarly, my teacher did not treat me the way I'm treating my students. Let me put it this way: my relationship with my daughter or with my students is very, very different from what I shared with either my parents or my teachers. It's different. Life has changed. So naturally, many things have happened.
Yeah, can you give some examples?
Yeah, sure. See, the good part is children are very, very talented nowadays. Most of them are very bright and very smart. I don't know what it is, but generally I think IQ levels have gone up. You know, seriously, seriously. I'm sure your granddaughter is so smart.
Oh my God, yeah, she is. Yeah, I mean, what we did at age 10, what my kids did at probably age 6, she's doing at age 2 and 3. So
that's what I mean. It doesn't fail to surprise me every time. You know, I'm all the time surprised because they're so smart and they know so much and they're able to grasp. And the other thing is you need to explain to the child, I feel, to a very large extent, which in our times we did not ask for and it wasn't given either. I wouldn't say that is totally wrong. At that time it worked. Okay, but today I think a little bit you have to, you know, take that extra trouble and you have to make them see the point in everything. I think that part of it is definitely there. And also time. Today, time has become such an important commodity. Like there were days when I would go to class, spend hours and come back. There were days when I did not dance at all due to various things there happening. You know, you would go and you would come back because either something else was happening or whatever. And there was no talk about it. Nobody even spoke about it. Today, it's not like that. Everything has to have a value. So if the child comes, you have to give it some value and send it back. You can't, it because time is so precious. And even when you do group work and all that, in those days we would sit and teacher would think about something, discuss it with us, and then we would do. Today it's not like that. You have the music already ready, you already have a blueprint of what you want and everything, and then you work, because you can't keep the students for hours on end. You can't keep the dancers for hours on end. It has to work. So I think that way itself, things have changed, Renuka. Yeah, I think that is like.
Yeah. So now let's talk about your training and the technical aspects of dance. I mean, people keep talking about, what is called the Angashuddham and the Aramandi, and you are particularly, famous for your Aramandi. So let's talk about how important technique is in dance, and whether one should be hung up on technique, or when does one, master the technique and transcend the technique.
I think technique is like the foundation of Bharatanatyam. It's grammar. It's a classical art form at the end of the day. It has to have a grammar, and you have to adhere to this grammar, whatever be your bani. Okay. And that comes only with practice. There's just no other way. There's no shortcut to it. You have to keep practicing. Secondly, I keep, thinking all the time. Sometimes it's not merely practice, but it's a practice with mindfulness. Like supposing in my body, something does not sit. Okay, I can't go on doing something which does not look nice and make sure, that I've done it so many number of times. It doesn't matter. You have to understand what suits you, what fits you, and work on that. Like sometimes I tell my students 2 and 2 is 5. It can never be 5. Even if you practice it 10,000 times, do it 10 times, but understand what it is and work on it. Immediately it works better for you. You save time, energy, everything. But even for that to happen, the child should have a little bit of maturity. The student should have a little bit of maturity. And more than anything else, like when you said, the difference between your teachers and us, I think the other thing that we need to understand is patience, Renuka. And both, the dancer as well as the family and everybody, the teacher, there are some things which come only with time. You can't rush it. You can't rush it. It has to take that much time. Yes, you have to go on practicing it, but you also have to give it that much time. It won't happen overnight. And definitely, if you have this little bit of understanding, maturity, then you can easily transcend your technique. I mean, that will happen, but there's no, the time frame is like, it's ambiguous in the sense that it might happen at some point for somebody, at some other point for somebody else. And secondly, even after you transcend the technique, okay, as an artist, you have to be with your dance all the time. You cannot say that I'll take a break for a year, or I'll take a break for 2 years, or I'll take a break for 3 months, or I'll take a break for whatever and I'll come back. It doesn't work like that. You have to be in touch with your dance. What I keep telling students, I'm going to take a break for 2 years, ma'am, and then I'll come back. Okay, take a break. You have to work, you have to write an exam, you have to study, whatever you have to do. But spend that little bit of time, let's say, whatever is your time, let's say 2 hours a week, or let's say half an hour a day, however, you do whatever works for you. But be in touch, think about it, work on it a little bit. Practice your adavos, do a padam, be in touch with your abhinayam. You have that kunju and the internalization. You just can't take it away and then immediately jump into it and say, we are all not God Nataraja, and just say that, we can take off. It's not like that. And we have to watch a lot of performances, especially seniors, and try to imbibe and not look at it. Sometimes, I realize that you look at dance only. We are not spectators. For instance, if I were to go and watch a movie, I'll say, you know what, I didn't enjoy this movie at all. It's a bore, and I'll come back. But if I'm a person who's a director or a art director or whatever, a person in some other role of creating the movie, whether the movie is boring or whether it's interesting is a very less consequence to me. I will try to see what it is that I can see and learn in that movie.
Take away from it.
Because I'm not a mere spectator, you see. So I think as artists, when you go to watch a performance or when you watch, you have to view it from that angle.
Okay.
Not like, it's not merely entertainment, you see. வேற என்ன இருக்கு அதுல, வேற என்ன நம்ம அதுல இருந்து எடுத்துக்கலாம், அதுல என்ன வேல்யூ இருக்கு நமக்கு, அண்ட் அப்பதான் நம்மளால அதை டிரான்சென்ட் பண்ண முடியும். அண்ட் டெஃபினெட்லி ஒரு லைஃப் டைம் பத்தாது, ஒரு லைஃப் டைம் பத்தாது. There is so much in it.
Do you have any tips, for want of a better word, I'm using the word tips to give dancers on, how you're able to achieve that perfect stance or the Aramandi, because that is the most difficult. I mean, though that is the basic stance, but it is so difficult to do, and it puts a lot of pressure on your knees and everything, right?
Yeah, definitely, Renuka. I think that is something that both the teacher and the student have to work on. And over time, you'll have to learn to, be able to hold it. I used to just do this as a child at home. I would keep the count of 10 because those days we didn't have these stopwatches on our phones and all. No, it wasn't so simple. So count of 10, count of 20, count of 30, count of 100. And the mother, this was just a game that I played with myself. And I would just see it was fun for me. So the panni paaklame, evlo neram da ukara mudiyum, and things like that. Only thing is your thighs become like definitely very strong, and they also become quite bulky. So there was a time when I couldn't wear, as a teenager, in those days churidars were very much in vogue, and I couldn't wear ready-made churidars at all because they would never go through my ankles. It was always, so much more developed. And my heels especially, and the heel pullave pogadu. So we always had to cut it and then restitch it, and then quadriceps were always so bulky, so those things. But yeah, you can actually see it. But now actually I realized that dancers have to do, when I was learning, there was no concept of stretches, there was no concept of warm up, cool down. I learned all that the hard way. Adipattu kathukitachu, injury vandu adilende eppadi kaapathano, how do you come out of it, and then learn. But I feel that is a total waste of time, and I insist and I keep telling every serious dancer, please have your own regimen. Yoga is like, for me, I think every dancer, every individual should do yoga because it's so good for the body.
I remember you telling me many years ago that your niece gave you some trouble many years ago, and you actually went to a yoga teacher, and he sort of helped you,
Absolutely. And what is surprising is, Renuka, now I realize, see, I was in my early 40s maybe when I first had my knee issue, and I was performing like 15 programs in a month. So at that time, and all sorts of floor, because I built this place 15 years ago, and the floor is a very nice floor. It's called a floor that is used for squash courts abroad. So it's a spongy kind of underlayer. But before that, it was only mosaic, hard mosaic that we danced on. But now I realize 15-year-olds, 20-year-olds, everyone who's using their legs has knee issues. I really don't even know how that can happen. But obviously there is something going wrong in the way we are training. Okay, so I think it's very, very important to do your yoga, to take care of your knees. And even when you do your tattadavu, there is a way of doing. You do not stamp your heel. You try to exert all the weight on your toes. So if you learn it right from the beginning, then that really helps. And of course, it is also a lot of hard work. As you're practicing, you have to be focusing on it. And then after a point, it becomes part of you. So you don't have to think about it so much. It becomes, but for that to happen, and the amount of time namadukku kuduthu aganum, amount of time and training and patience.
Let's talk about your journey as a guru. You're actually one of few dancers who has a prolific performing career alongside, running a school with, a huge number of students as well. So how are you able to juggle both the performing career and the teaching?
Uh, I think the main reason I'm able to do both is because I really enjoy it, Renuka. Otherwise, I think it would have been like quite a chore, because it is quite demanding. It is demanding both on your time as well as on you. So you have to, at certain times, you'll have to sacrifice a few things like your own personal time. So that definitely is there, but I really enjoy it, so it's okay. And the greatest advantage that I have is that my school is in my house itself. So I don't have to travel. Earlier, before I built this place, I was working out of rented premises for 10 years, and it is only like 1.5 kilometers from my house, maybe 1 to 1.5 kilometers from my house. Yet sometimes I would get stuck for not less than 20-25 minutes one way in traffic.
Okay.
Okay. And without traffic, it would take me like less than 5 minutes to reach. So I think the biggest advantage is I work from my house itself. I have this place at home, and I'm able to do, that's one of the main reasons I'm able to do both. But it, of course, takes a lot out of you in terms of your time. Your time is something that you have to, but I like it.
You, as a guru to so many students, you actually put together a number of group productions as well, right? Because when you have this many students, I mean, obviously all of them cannot become solo artists, and I've seen quite a few of your group productions. In fact, just last month I saw the production that you did for Bharati Vidya Bhavan, based on Andal. That was such a beautiful show called Goda. So can you tell me something about your group choreographies and where you draw your inspiration for the group choreographies? Are they all traditional, or have you done contemporary group choreographies as well?
Actually, they are all traditional, Renuka. This one that we did, Goda, it's not really a production. It's actually more of a presentation, because it was all last minute. Because Bharati Vidya Bhavan hardly approached me, like, let's say, less than 2 months before the show. And 2 months is hardly any time. You can't put anything together at that time. Yeah, less than 2 months, a month and a half. So, and it was like too last minute. I already had 25 minutes of Nachiyar Tirumuri, which was already done with recorded music. So I said, okay, let's develop on that. So I used 9 Tirupaves and some other verses from Nachiyar Tirumuri as well, other than Varanamayiram, and put it together. I did not record it because we did not have enough time nor funds to go in for recording at such short notice. So just getting the girls together and putting this together itself was quite challenging. I didn't want to let go of the opportunity, because it's nice to have some work happening all the time, like you feel enthused, and we're doing this after 2 years. So
I love the way you showed 3 different andals at 3 different stages of life, right?
Yeah, it is not actually stages of life, Renuka. It's more stages of her mind.
Okay.
So in the beginning, that Andal Kautum talked about Vishnu Chittar having seen this child in the Tulasi Vanam. So that's why we showed this little child, and then we showed this child thinking and writing about what she thinks. Because Andal also, like Krishna, a child of 6, I mean, how could she write about moksha, and how could she talk about all those things in the Tirupavai? Such high philosophical ideas and implications. So obviously there must have been some divine power to her, no? Otherwise it's not. So that is what we were trying to say, that she talked about a young maiden. Though she was a child of 6, she talked about young maidens. And then she talked about the higher planes of life, the higher planes of philosophy. So that is why we chose 3 to depict the 3 values that she stood for, spiritual values that she stood for. So just to get the costumes together and stitch it and get that itself was like, so last minute. But it was also exciting to work on this. So this is, again, as I said, I had 25 minutes already of Varanamayiram. So from that we grew and we developed. My earlier productions, but usually some things that I've already done as solo. So I already have a kind of an idea, and
Okay.
then grow on it. Yeah, like except Meera, I didn't do it. Yeah, even Meera, actually, I did it as a solo. And only after that, first what I did was I've done Meera Bhajans earlier, like in a full-fledged performance, I've done Meera Bhajan. So Adalendra, the life of Meera, and made it into a group. That's what I usually do. I find it more comfortable because I have some basic idea before starting off. But it's a totally different doing a solo, being a solo dancer yourself versus training a student versus a group. It all requires a different mind skill to watch. I realize in groups, you're looking at so many other things. Let's say, for instance, you're looking at interactions between characters. If a dancer is good as a solo dancer, she'll be able to do a solo or a main character in a play very well. He or she will be able to do that very well. But for them to interact with the others and for the other person to interact with them, those are the challenges, I think. And of course, placements and how the story flows, and then coordination between dancers. And now lighting has also become so much part of this. So with the lights, and we have so many challenges, because we get the stage only the previous night. So after the vocalist finishes, so you get your auditorium not before 10 o'clock in the night. So you finish sometimes at 3 a.m. in the morning, 3:30, and then next evening is your show. So, I mean, I'm sure dancers all over the world have the same challenges.
So when you're doing your group productions, I mean, do you work with specific resource people for ideas? And
Yeah, definitely. I definitely speak to a lot of people. I discuss with a lot of experts, a lot of scholars. I also discuss with my faculty. I also discuss with my senior students, and we brainstorm together and then come up with some things. And Samyukta is a huge support for me.
yeah,
Renuka.
let's talk about that. I mean, your
Samyukta is a
daughter
huge
is actually now your manager, for want of a better word. So how did that come about?
If she hears that, she's going to just finish me. Yeah. I mean, she's a full-fledged working person herself, and she's got her own career, but she's very, very interested in dance and music, and she's my worst critic. And she's very good at management, Renuka, because she worked in a corporate for 5 years, and then now, of course, she runs my husband's business, so she also knows a lot about management, much more than I do. So, and it also really helps me because it's a lot of burden taken off, you know what I mean? When you know that somebody very capable is doing a better job than you can do. So then you focus.
She takes care of all the admin aspects.
Completely. She takes care of everything, including selection of costumes and makeup, and all those things is taken care of by her. So then it's a huge, of course, we work together. I mean, we run our ideas by each other. And so that part of it is very, very helpful for me as well, because as you know how there is so much happening in the background, right? So all that is taken care of by her. So that's a huge load off. And we're able to work together. Even Arpanam also, we're able to put it together only because all the admin work was completely handled by Samyukta.
So you have traveled the world over performing Bharatanatyam for several years. So tell us what it is like to perform in India, I mean in Chennai in India and other places in India and in other parts of the world.
I think that's also a very interesting question because every place is different, Renuka. Every place is different. And even within a place, even within that place, the organizations sometimes are very different. The kind of audience you get sometimes is very, very different. Okay. And first and foremost, I have to say that within India and abroad, I find that when people come abroad to watch a performance, they're far more serious audience in the sense they come with a purpose to watch the show. It's not as though, you know, I went shopping and I was anyway visiting my sister and this was happening nearby, so I dropped in for some time. Okay. It's not like that.
It's not entertainment alone.
It's not something that is done by the way, you know, it's a planned event. It's like you plan, you want to watch this artist, and then you purchase your ticket and then you come and you watch that show. So then I find they're far and they're very well informed, very, very well informed. So it's not like in the days of yore when nobody knew what anything was. Today, the world is very, very connected. Everywhere, everyone knows what is happening. So it's, I like that very, very much. And for instance, I find that when you perform in a place like Europe or in some other place where they don't even know the language, let's say Switzerland or France or something, they will still enjoy your dance. They will still enjoy your dance. At the end of the show, they will come and tell you how much they liked it. And you know for a certainty that they would not have been able to gather the words or the meaning, because one would have been in Sanskrit, one would have been in Telugu, one would have been in Tamil. Even if they happen to know one language, they won't know all 3 or 4 languages. But still, I think it's the joy of the art that they come to appreciate. And sometimes performances there are much longer than what it is here. So you know that audience is serious about it. And even within India, I think Bombay has a different audience, Delhi has a different audience, Chennai, Hyderabad, Bangalore. But by and large, audiences nowadays are well informed. And there is definitely a higher increase in the levels of appreciation of art, which I think is a very, very good thing.
I now would like to, ask you something about your mom. I have actually seen your mother accompany you to almost every performance of yours. So what role has she played in your dance journey? I mean, this is a Bharatanatyam mother is sort of the equivalent of, what they have in the US, what they call the soccer mom. Here you have the Bharatanatyam mom. I think moms play a very, very important role, right? Can you say something about your mother's role in
I really am so happy you asked me this question, because I think almost everything that I know today or where I stand today owe it to my mom. Because the very fact that I was taught Bharatanatyam and she spent so much of her time, money and energy training me, because you know that learning an art form doesn't happen easily, both in terms of time, both in terms of finances. And when I was a young teenager, and sometimes I wouldn't want to go to class, and then I'll say, you know what, I'll create a fuss. So she'll say, jokingly, she would say, we had a house on Barnaby Road in Kilpauk, which my father built. So she'll say, I would have built 10 houses like this on Barnaby Road if I hadn't taught you that. And now you're refusing to go to class even. So she would crib and crib on those days. And anyway, so a lot was done behind me by my parents and especially my mother. My father as well, he was a very busy doctor. Despite that, ferrying me to class, bringing me back, taking me everywhere, traveling. My mother traveled. My father didn't travel with me. And after marriage, I think the biggest thing that my mother has done for my dance is she totally looked after Samyukta when she was young. So that was a huge blessing. My mother traveled with me to places where she could come, but sometimes she couldn't. If it was like, say, a US or a Europe or something, then it was not possible to bring the child and leave my father and come and all that. So she would look after Samyukta at home completely. And for me, that was a huge boon. Of course, Sati sent her to school and all those things. But even otherwise, after she came back and evenings and getting her ready and all that, completely was taken care of. And not only that, advising me through everything. It was not only merely, my mother didn't play the role of only caring for me in terms of my food and my well-being. It was not that. She actually knew the pulse of what was happening at that time. So she took the trouble to find out who was the good teacher, who was a good musician, what were the right items to dance, what was the, and she was my mother did BA music in Ethiraj College. So she's a fairly good musician. Of course, she never pursued anything, but she knows music. So she would say, in the ragam edukad, in the ragathukku appuram idhaan nalla irukum, and in the kirtanam nalla irukum, in the padavarnam nalla irukum, and those sort of things. So this poetry is very good. Very fond of Telugu poetry. So she would come up with a lot of different kinds of poetry, especially Annamacharya, Tyagaraja, Vemana, Potana, all those were her favorite composers. So I've done things like that, which are very rare, hardly many Bharatanatyam did the Vemana or a Potana and all that, but I did entirely because of her. She would choose it and give it to me and say, think about it, mull it over, it's nice to do. And today, of course, she's retired in the sense that she's quite elderly, and due to the pandemic and so many things, she's not able to go out at all. And on the other hand, she's become such a YouTube queen. We call her the YouTube. She knows everything about every dancer in every part of the globe at her fingertips. So my students, sometimes some of them blog, and if they want tips, they ask her. It's like that. I mean, she knows so much about it, and I'm so thankful to God, literally, for this. This so much of uh, uh, material that is available for people, especially the seniors who love to do things that they cannot do now, but they're still able to enjoy it because it's available online.
What I remember about her, which has stayed in my mind, is that once I think when she traveled with you to Singapore, she said, I mean, the thing of keeping the arm, I mean, it should not drop below shoulder level. How she used to go on telling you that when you were young.
No, she goes on telling me even now. Not only when I was young, even now. I'm surprised. I thought you were about to say just before you went on stage, she reminded you, because that is what she would usually do. So now it's go and remember this or remember that. Yeah, definitely backbone, complete backbone. And I think that is truly a great blessing in my life. And
so how have the last 2 years been? The last 2 years have been challenging for all of us, but
it's
particularly
been
for
very
artists. And how have you coped with the challenge of moving to an online format?
It was
slowly things appear to be coming back, but how has it been on the whole?
Yeah, it was quite different. To put it in the least, it was like, because we didn't, I mean, we closed for, we went on lockdown exactly a week before one of my arangetrams. There were two sisters performing on Sunday, and we locked down on a Tuesday. And it was very, very difficult for me to accept. It was the very first time an arangetram was getting cancelled, So I knew what the sisters had put in, and they were looking forward. The invitations were done. Everything was there. And we had to. So for me, it took me a week just to come to terms with it. So it was mentally quite different for me. After that, very soon, I realized that we had to make payments to our teachers and our staff, and many of them are dependent on this for their livelihood. It's not like it's just an extra pocket money. It's not like that. So, and how long could I sustain without, it doesn't work like that. So we decided, first what we started doing is we started giving WhatsApp instructions, and we started asking students to send us WhatsApp videos, which we would check. Then we realized that wasn't helping. Then we decided to go online. My husband is actually a techie, so he really helped us in this, to set it up. And then I had to explain this to faculty, and they also understood. And initially, of course, it was very difficult. Even now, I feel, 1 hour of teaching online is equivalent to 1.5 or 2 hours of teaching in person. It's a huge strain, but we didn't have a choice, Renuka, because we thought we had a bunch of arangetrams. That's another thing that happened this year. We did 11 arangetrams in a span of 16 days, because in the month of August, we realized there was going to be a small opening. Okay, and RR Sabha was willing to give us the hall if we were to adhere to the fact that we could invite 50 to 100 people, least 50, maximum 100. My parents were willing, because many of them had, they were reaching the end of their patience, because they were waiting for 1.5 years, and then children had to do other things with their time, and they had to go on. So I kept thinking at that time that we were going to open like, another 2 weeks, maybe another 3 weeks. So the dancer had to be informed. So that sort of kept me going to teach the students the arangetram once, and then the teachers and online classes started, and we went on as usual. I mean, it was a bit challenging to initially understand how to go about it. And then we went hybrid for some time. We would do live classes, like let's say if the child comes in 4 times a week or 3 times a week, then we did 1 live class and 2 online classes. We tried that out. So, but now from January, we've been doing like, not January, what am I saying? From October, we've been doing completely live classes with no online classes, except for 1 or 2 students where, parents are very, very afraid about sending the child. Then only for those kids we do online. Otherwise, but yes, it was very, very, and I know many musicians, we also tried to reach out and do whatever best we could. But I also know 1 or 2 musicians who've really lost their minds, Renuka, personally, I know two people who've not been able to come back. I think art is very connected with your mind, because artists are very connected with. So I think if mentally you go through a lot of anguish, I think somehow it's also difficult to hold on to your art. Because many of them had very severe financial losses, very severe financial loss, especially people who had loans to repay and, things like that. It was, nobody expected it, right?
It's been very challenging for artists.
And I personally know Mridangas who've started selling food. It's very sad, yeah. Very sad.
I really, hope that 2022 brings glad tidings.
I really hope so too. I really hope so. I think the Omicron and all should just run away somewhere.
So it's been so wonderful talking to you, Urmila. Before we sign off, I just want you to give, a few words of advice or share from your vast experience. What would you like to tell the dance students of SIFAS? SIFAS actually has a very strong dance community. We have about 5 Bharatanatyam teachers, and now we have a flourishing Kathak faculty as well. So there are, I think, close to about 800, 900 dance students, and some of them dance quite seriously. And the alumni network is also now very strong, and they are putting together productions and all that. And the last couple of years have, of course, been very difficult, but do you have any words of wisdom for them?
First of all, let me tell you that I truly, from the bottom of my heart, appreciate each and every artist working in SIFAS. Okay, because I know, first of all, kudos to the management, because unless the head is strong, the tail is not going to be strong. So the management of SIFAS has always been so committed to the arts, so committed to the arts. It's because of your commitment that you're able to get faculty and you're able to hold on and able to train faculty who are equally committed to their students. And to have, 800, 900 students learning dance is no mean task. It is a huge, it's a huge responsibility, and that too living in a foreign country. I mean, in my institution, the maximum I've ever had is 300, and I know how difficult it is.
Well, probably, 800 may not be the right number, but it
whatever.
At least, I'm sure it's at least 600.
Yeah, that is still a very large number. I know what it will mean for management and your festivals that you have every year. I mean, whatever is done with so much of sincerity, and you can expect that class. So whenever I know a SIFA student is dancing, an artist is dancing, or a production, I know that it will be something which is truly classy. And congratulations to each and every one of you, because it's only a person who does something will realize the difficulties and the hard work that goes into it. So I truly appreciate and admire, and my pranams to each and every artist in SIFAS, and my love and my best wishes to all the dancers. The only, I can't say advice, but the only thing that I keep telling all dancers who are serious is dance is something that cannot happen overnight. Okay, you really need to have a little bit of patience to see it through, and have that belief that definitely it is something that once you start enjoying the ruchi, it's something that you will get addicted to, and you'll be an addict all your life. And no de-addiction center in the world can get you out of it. Mm-hmm. And it's such
it's a nice kind of addiction.
It's a lovely addiction is the wrong word, but what I'm trying to say is you get hooked to it for life, and the flavor and whatever you get out of it, like when you dance or when you teach or when you see, when you're on stage, sometimes that euphoria you might feel like for a fraction of a second, but that is more than enough to keep you going for the next, I don't know how many countless months or years, because it's a very beautiful taste, and you'll definitely be richer for it in every sense of the word. And work with a passion, work with that deep asa and passion. That is the only thing that I can say. You don't look at it clinically. It doesn't work like that. Put your, whatever comes to you, whatever is your soul, whatever, just put that into it and it will definitely work. And always remember that everything that we get it only from the divine, whatever be that divine for each of us, whatever is our Ishtadevata, our caste, creed, community, it all comes from that one source, and we have to be eternally grateful to that source.
Thank
That's
you
the
so
only
much.
thing. Thank you so much, Renuka, and I'm so happy that
It's been so wonderful talking to you and actually seeing you after more than 2 years. So
Yeah.
it's been wonderful having
you.
this
And I'm so
conversation.
happy that we spoke tonight. Just
Yeah,
as we
and the new year is dawning tomorrow. Let's hope that it dawns better and brighter for all of
Yes,
us, especially the artistic community. And we hope to see you sooner rather than later back in Singapore.
yes,
It's been
same here.
wonderful talking to you.
Thank you so
very much. Thank you.